Hey everybody, and welcome to our studio show here. It's the final round of the FIM MX Motocross World Championship, MXGP. We're at the MXGP of Leon in Mexico. My guests this week are going to be Gautier Paulin, Antonio Cairoli and Adam Wheeler. But before we catch up with Gautier, who's been missing for quite some time during this season, but glad to say he's back racing, let's see what happened 1 week ago at the state of Goiás in Brazil. Here's some highlights from MX2 Race 2. Not the fastest of reactions for Gautier Paulin as we go up the start straight here for MX2 Race 2. On board with Romain Febvre, Alexander Tonkov and Jeremy Seewer on the right. Seewer getting squeezed there by the fast starting Spaniard, Jose Butron. Exit the first turn, heading down into turn 2 on board with Tonkov. A good start for him, both Husqvarnas well placed in 3rd and 4th. Butron led the way from Lieber, coming out of the first few corners. Then Tonkov went down and then got nailed. Tim Geiser made a good start, and before long he was challenging Julian Lieber for the lead. He made this pass on the Belgian, and from then he never looked back really. Valentin Guyot, Dylan Ferrandis and Romain Febvre were well placed, but then Guyot made this mistake and went out on lap 4 on his stand-in contract KTM. Jeremy Seewer was having the ride of his life in MX2, and he was battling with the number 33 of Julian Lieber. He forced his way up the inside into 2nd with this pass here. Then Seewer came under pressure from Dylan Ferrandis, and Romain Febvre, under the weather this weekend, was putting everything out there. A mistake from Seewer allowed Ferrandis to go through into 2nd, and then watch the back end swap here on the face of the jump. Jeremy Seewer very lucky to stay on 2 wheels. Romain Febvre found a way through to make that pass to go 3rd, and it was important that as well, because he was in a competition, in a race for the overall Grand Prix with Dylan Ferrandis. Tim Geiser was super smooth on the Garibaldi Honda and was well clear of his rivals. Ferrandis was in 2nd, Romain Febvre was 3rd, but it was a first MX2 race win for Tim Geiser, a first overall Grand Prix victory for the Wilvo Nastan Husqvarna of Romain Febvre, and he edged out Dylan Ferrandis by 1 point. Geiser finished 3rd overall. No KTMs on the podium, but Jeffrey Hurlings continues to lead Gautier Paulin by 23 points with 1 round to go. Of course, the final round being in Mexico in 1 week's time. Right, well, that was some highlights from a week ago in the MXGP of Goiás in MX2, and of course Gautier Paulin, Monster Energy Team, Kawasaki Racing Team, joins me now for our studio show here. Gautier, welcome back. Good to have you back first of all, but 8th place in the championship, it's not a true reflection of where you ought to be in the World Championship standings. We know why, but Qatar all of a sudden seems a very long time ago, doesn't it?
Yeah, when you tell me 8th place in the overall, I mean, I don't even know. I don't care anymore about the championship. You know, I've been injured, so I've been out for pretty much like 40% of the championship. So now I'm just back racing. I know what I was doing before, winning GP and fighting for the title, start of season, and then now it's a different goal, but still enjoy anyway on my bike. So that's what I want.
Obviously, it was a bright start in Qatar. You took the lead, you led the championship. A couple of GPs after that, Thailand and Brazil, you didn't make the podium. But suddenly, we go to Bulgaria, we go to Trentino, you start winning races, and you're right back in there in contention.
I didn't have... I mean, my result was always really good. You know, Qatar won the GP, and then yeah, that was some good memories. I was just having a good flow and good start. Then after in Thailand, I had problem with fuel, technical problem on the bike, so couldn't really fight for the red plate. Then went in Brazil, which had a 2 good start and crashed at the first lap, and Brazil was really hard to pass. So that made me out of the podium, out of the box. But anyway, I was really fast over there, with I think a 6th and a 2nd, and then went back to Trentino, over there I was winning both moto, won the first one, and in the second one I just again have no chance, get the stone, break the engine, so my bike stopped and couldn't. The first place on the box was for me, but anyway, and then I went in Bulgaria, finished second, then went in Valkenswaard and get the win of the first moto and injure myself on the second moto. So anyway, it was a great start of the season.
Well, we have footage from Valkenswaard actually of you winning that first race, and in terms of your riding abilities in the sand, it's not very often, is it, that French guys, apart from Tony in the sand, as Italian riders, you know, get victories in the sand, but obviously you won the first race. And obviously, I'm guessing that it was quite a big moment for you to win that first race in Valkenswaard. But then at the same time, the day finished with a mixture of emotions with that crash in the second race.
You know, I've been training hard on sand, and I like sand. So from that, I like pretty much every kind of track. So I've won Valkenswaard. It was for sure. It was great to win on front of Antonio. But 2010, I won Europe also, which is the heaviest sand we have. Yeah. And then I show also this year in Lommel. I mean, I don't need any more to say. I show. You know, people know that I'm good on sand, and yeah, just enjoying on every track I'm riding on.
Yeah, and then obviously we're just looking at here at the French Grand Prix, your home race. Disappointed not to have been racing there. We know the injury took longer, but is it a case with the injury? You knew the championship was over after Valkenswaard anyway, so if you were still in the fight for the championship, maybe you could have come back sooner, but there was no point, was there?
Yeah, if I could fight for the championship, I couldn't be back before.
Okay.
I was back just in time when I could. I couldn't be back before. You know, without the temp, how can you hold the bike? I was having the right shoulder broke and the left hands broke. So how can you hold the bike? But I wasn't really disappointed. You know, that's life. And once you're injured, you're injured. So you just need to take what's coming. And I wasn't disappointed. You know, I was winning races, and it was just the next part of the season for me. And now I'm back, and for me it's over. I'm just 100%, and it's still good memories. You know, we are racing motocross, and injured are part of life and of our lifestyle. Just when everything is rolling, you know, you go back Monday, have recovery, but then now, like, went with my fiancée, she drive me through south of France, make 1,300 Ks to get operated, and that's part of it's getting me tired to do that, but still now it's on the back, and there is much more worse in life, but I'm enjoying so much even in Valkenswaard, so it's always good memories.
Yeah, obviously you are back. You got second last week after 2 4th place finishes in the Czech and Belgian Grand Prix. So you're obviously feeling okay, and I guess just in time for the FIM Monster Energy Motocross of Nations in 2 weeks' time in Latvia. How is Team France looking at this stage?
Oh, it's looking great. It's looking great. Dylan Ferrandis have a lot of motivation to ride that race. And Steven also, he really wants to ride too. So by my side, it's an honor always to get the blue-white red jersey, you know. And just it's a strange feeling, you know. Every fan, from the public side to the athlete side, you know, it's always like, what kind of design of helmet, of gear, of design on a bike, what kind of track, how the tracks they're going to change it, and the strategy of which MX2 rider, which MX1 rider will go up front on the gate, and it's always so many things. And normally it's a sport like individual sport, and now we are like a team. So that race I really love it, and it's great. You know, I think many rider, many country have great team, and we are part of it. So it's great to go to this challenge again.
All right, well, look, we are out of time with Gautier Paulin, but good luck for this weekend, and of course, look forward to the Motocross of Nations in 2 weeks' time in Latvia. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Right, before we welcome our next guest, let's have a look at some of the highlights from MXGP last week in State of Goiás, race 1. Antonio Cairoli lined up as usual, with just one thing on his mind, getting through the race. And as the riders filtered in, Jeremy van Hoorbeek lined in one of the last gates on the right-hand side. So Cairoli still had work to do if he was to take that 8th world title. The gate dropped, on board with Matis Caro, as he swept through the first turn, but it was Max Nagel who pulled the foxhole shot. Cairoli wasn't well placed, nor too was Jeremy Van Hoorbeek. As we headed out on the first lap, Davide Guarnieri fell, and Cairoli was lucky to avoid a crash. He ran over the TM of the Italian, but he did keep it up on two wheels. The HRC Honda of Max Nagel led the way though, as Dean Ferris and Stephen Frossard battled over second, as Cairoli fought hard to come through the pack. Ahead of him here, David Philipparts and Tommy Searle, those two battling over seventh. Frossard made it into second, and he was being hounded by Dean Ferris and Kevin Strybos as Cairoli homed in on Tommy Searle. He made this pass here in the final turn to move into seventh position. Sean Simpson though crashed out whilst challenging Ferris for fourth. Tony Cairoli managed to get himself onto the rear wheel of Gautier Paulin in a possible challenge for fourth position, while Max Nagel and HRC was in imperious form. Strybos on the 22 Rockstar Suzuki was closing in on Frossard for second, but Tony Cairoli and the Red Bull KTM were closing in on an 8th world title. Cairoli tried to find a way past Paulin, but it wasn't necessary. Paulin though found a way past Dean Ferris, and a couple of laps later Cairoli also found a way past the Red Bull Ice One Husqvarna rider. Had to work for it though, but eventually he made the pass stick, and that put Paulin fourth, Cairoli fifth. But there was no one stopping Max Nagel. He came over the line to win his third moto of the season, while Tony Cairoli crossed the line to make it 8 world titles in 12 years. KTM celebrated, the fans celebrated on what was another historic day for KTM and Cairoli, and a good sporting gesture there from Jeremy Van Hoorbeek, who takes second in the World Championship.
Antonio Cairoli joins me now, Red Bull KTM Factory Racing. Tony, good to have you here. I know it's the second time for you this year, but is that the first time you've seen that highlight back?
Yeah, it's the first time I see the highlights from the race, because we were not home for all the week, so I didn't manage to see this race, this highlights. Yeah.
Obviously, another successful season for you. You've won more than 50% of the Grand Prix. How was it winning in Brazil in particular? The fans, the atmosphere, that kind of thing. Special place, because you've done it before there, haven't you?
Yeah, it was nice, you know, because it's the second time I win in Brazil, and it seems that I have a lot of fans over there, and they are really always coming to watch the races and following me on all my social media and all the year. So it's nice to win there. For sure, it was better for me to win in Europe because a lot of other fans and families, but it was still nice to win there.
How was the party? I heard it was okay, but not quite full gas.
Yeah, it was okay. Not quite full gas, but we still drink a little bit. So today, and we start to find the balance again and try to manage to race in this nice track here in Mexico.
Obviously, it's been a difficult season for you in many respects. After the GP of Spain, you know, your father passed away. How difficult was it coming into Matchley Basin? Because for me, this was like a real test of you as a person, as a character, as a rider. Because many people could have said, I'm not going to race, but you went through it, you came away with the victory, but it must have been a very, very emotional time for you.
Yeah, it definitely was one of my toughest race of all my career, because you know, not many people will race with such a loss in the beginning of just some days before the race. There was the funeral, so I think it was pretty tough. And but you know, I raced for because my family bring me to this nice sport, and I try to give them all the things back that they put me in front. You know, always. Obviously,
as I said, you know, you won the GP there at Matchley Basin, but in the Grand Prix that followed, for you know, a lot of the reasons, you know, Clermont fell by the wayside, Gautier was already out. Jeremy Van Hoorbeek was becoming your closest rival, but kind of after Lockett going into Belgium, you know, with his victory, he still had an opportunity to be world champion. But after Lommel, with, you know, his problem in the first race when he hit the face on the handlebars, the 8th world title was within touching distance. Was that how you felt after that? Could you start to breathe a little bit and start realistically thinking about the World Championship?
No, actually, I didn't ever think to lost it. I mean, for sure, I know that Jerry was close, and he's a good rider. He's coming closer and closer, and you know. But my goal was always to be there in the podium, and if I was there on the podium, then there was no reason to be scared, you know, to lose the title. So you know, there was races where I wasn't on top this year, on top form, and I think there is I'm still, you know, there was not my best year as a performance physically, so I think we are still things to work for next year, but anyway, we made it to arrive on a good result again.
How difficult was the second race here?
Yeah,
Normal.
normal was not normal. The second race with such a heavy rain and on a track that was destroyed already without goggles. Everybody, you see nothing, and was very tough. But was nice to have my teammate on the podium again.
And finally, obviously we know you won the championship. Obviously last week we saw the clip at the beginning, but 2 weeks time, Latvia, FIM Monster Energy Motocross of Nations. It's the 4th time that you, David Philipparts and Davide Guarnieri will come together to represent Team Italy. You're of course going to be riding the 250, 8th world title, riding number 8. It's almost in the stars a little bit, isn't it? Are you looking forward to it again, once again?
Yeah, I'm looking forward for. It's my next goal. You know, the championship was the goal this year, and now it's done. You know, we have still another race, but my goal now is to try to prepare good for the 250. I already started a different preparation for riding the 250, and I hope I will be there on a good performance also for my team, because that's the most important things on that race.
When you get back from here, arrive in Italy, how soon before you start preparing on the 250?
Yeah, I think Wednesday I'm already on the 250 this week, so we didn't test yet with the 250, so we have a lot of stuff to do, and hopefully we can manage to make it perfect fits perfect for me, you know.
All right, well look, obviously there is one more Grand Prix to finish. That's this weekend here in Mexico. Then obviously wish you all the best for that. Maybe you can round it out with a victory here, but of course Antonio Cairoli will be back in action as well in 2 weeks time at the Monster Energy Motocross of Nations as well. So that's Antonio Cairoli, Red Bull KTM Factory Racing, and once again it's competition time. Don't forget, if you guess the top 3 riders correctly in MXGP and MX2 this weekend, you can win MXGP, the official video game, and MXGP TV access. We've also got the Alpine Star goodies to be won as well. So submit your guess by visiting the MXGP Facebook page, and don't forget, the only place you can watch 2 days live from the FIM Monster Energy Motocross of Nations in Latvia, which also means the qualifying races on Saturday and the live races is on mxgptv.com. So make sure you take advantage of that. Right, my next guest is with me, Adam Wheeler, ontrackoffroad.com. I think we've got a little bit of time here to quickly summarise the season, but it's been a strange one, hasn't it? But we can start of all, I think, just talking about this place here in Leon, Mexico. We've had the 2 free practice sessions. I watched MX2 from the infield. We're at altitude, 1,800 meters, something like that, so the engines aren't performing that great, but at the same time, it's pretty heavy out there as well, isn't it? What have the riders been saying?
Yeah, pretty much. That's I think the reaction yesterday when people arrived here for the first time and were checking the place out was very favourable. You know, the riders seemed to respond well. It's a kind of a wide track. It's got some nice landscape features. It's largely flat, but there's some good jumps. It looked like people were looking forward to playing on it today, Paul. But I think a little bit, you know, some of the work with the ground is one issue, but also, again, like you mentioned, the power of the bikes being at this high altitude. I think it's you know, it's been a bit of a surprise in these first 2 practice sessions. I think the riders are going to have to get used to the different kind of the way the bikes are going to handle with the engine performance and everything, and trying to deal with some of these bigger jumps, especially in MX2. So it's going to be a day of adjustment, I think. You know, we might see 1 or 2 surprises in the qualification heat race. Riders who normally get strong out of the gate down to the first corner might not be so much so today. And yeah, I don't know, we could see some different things happening over this weekend.
All right, well, that's all right. But, it's a little bit breezy. But Will, the reason why we are here with you today is let's just talk about the championship. Obviously, it got off to a pretty impressive start from Gautier Paulin. Tony was 2nd or 3rd at the first Grand Prix, wasn't he? DeSalle was a little bit behind the 8 ball, but he was the first guy that started to come into contention, but it all went wrong for him, didn't it? Italy and Sweden.
Yeah, it was that big crash in Majora, wasn't it? Just having a look here. I mean, we didn't get the full look at it on the TV pictures, but you know, it led to a wrist injury, which you didn't think was that bad. Then there was this huge crash in Uddevalla. I mean, that was pretty scary stuff, and you know, had a lot of internal injuries. Clement walked away from that, but you know, he was hurting for quite a good while afterwards. And you know, it was the wrist ultimately from Majora that did him in. I mean, it was a broken scaphoid, and you're not going to recover from that, you know, in time enough to race to your full potential throughout the rest of the season. He got to the Czech Republic, tried to go through, and in the end they said, look, it's not working, guys. You know, I have to go and get this fixed. He's had a graft, he's had an operation, and now it's going to be later this year in the depths of winter before he's going to be back on that Suzuki. So it's another season of frustration for Clement Desailly, because it's a real shame. 4 Grand Prix wins. I think he was looking, you know, had a lot of potential for this year.
Yeah, it was what, 7 motos, 6 race wins as well up to that point. And I said in the commentary as well at that point, when I saw him walking away, I said, is that the championship as well? And clearly it was. But what about Jeremy Van Horbeke, Yamaha Factory Racing? He emerged, didn't he, as a real title threat this year, 11 consecutive podiums. What do you make of his season? Obviously he's 2nd overall this year.
I think it's been a big surprise, not for just us watching Paul, but also for Jeremy himself to have this level of performance in only his 2nd year in the Premier class, but also for Yamaha. I mean, he really did put that brand, after 2 years of injury problems and bad luck. I mean, this was the high point, wasn't it, the Czech Republic in Loket. It's one of his favourite tracks anyway, but you know, he took advantage of just a little slip by Tony Cairoli there on the last lap to take his first Grand Prix win, and it really was like the high point of the Belgian season, and he thoroughly deserved being runner-up this year. I mean, there was nobody else who put that whole package together throughout sort of the 5 months. I can't believe the season's gone this quickly, but you know, it was good to see somebody, you know, that elated with a first Grand Prix victory.
He was unlucky, wasn't he, in Belgium when he smashed his face on the handlebars attempting that quad, and also in Goiás last week when he was comfortable in 2nd in a qualifying race, and he's obviously rode out the first race last week with an ankle injury, and he went out in MXGP free practice this morning. I'm guessing he's going to race as well, but it's not the end of the season that he wanted. No,
that's right. I think there was a little bit of a job done, you know, coming up to sort of, you know, he needed to finish a moto last week in Brazil in the Trindade circuit, and he did that job. He's got the number 2 plate that he won't use for next year, of course, but he is the official runner-up for this year. And he had he's trying to do the quad in Lommel. It didn't come off for him, smashed the bars like you say. But I think Van Horbeke can, you know, and Yamaha can feel very pleased with the work they've done. And I know they work so much during the off-season to get the bike set up in a completely different way for Jeremy, and it really worked out. I mean, he's always a rider that's never on the limit anyway. He's never pushing more than 100%. He's very sort of smooth, calm and collected, knows what he wants to do and where he has to go. And that approach has really just paid dividends for him this year.
And what about Sean Simpson? Obviously, there are other riders in there. Kevin Strybos got his first podium in Trentino, for instance, and he's emerged as a 3rd place finisher now in the championship. But Sean Simpson, after winning his first Grand Prix last year in Lierop, he wanted to be sort of 6th, 7th, 8th, but he's knocking on the door for a 5th place in the championship, isn't he? Has he surprised you on the Hitachi Construction Machinery KTM this year?
Not really.
His consistency?
No, I don't think so. I mean, Sean's always been a kind of a consistent rider. I mean, that win in Lierop last year, I think, just lifted his career to a new level, and also showed that he is one of the most capable SAM riders in Grand Prix racing. And here we see him on the podium in Belgium, and that was always going to be a shot for Sean. The best thing for me this year is he has been there every week. You know, I think he's failed to finish in 2 motos out of the 32 we've had so far.
Well, I mean, I've got here 11 top 10s, as in race finishes, as in overalls and 1 podiums. That's a phenomenal record on its own, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, he's the top rider from a satellite team, and I think he's performed to his level. I don't think he's overperformed. No. You know, the structure of the team is modest. I think, you know, Roger McGee, the owner of the team, won't blame me for saying that. No. So I think it's been an exceptional season, and let's not forget that this final Grand Prix of the year, the battle for 5th place in the championship, which, you know, some people might not matter so much, but for Sean and maybe even Stephen Frossard from KRT is still a big deal. You know, those guys have to sort it out this weekend.
And still riding injured, partially dislocated shoulder in the first race last week. Rode through the pain barrier in a tube, tapping, strapping on the shoulder to get him through race 2, and here he is again. That's how badly he wants his 5th place.
Yeah, that's right. It was a Jackie Martin's tip, wasn't it, from the old days? You know, just strip out the inside of a tyre and wrap it around your torso. But no, I think he was halfway through the trip anyway. Same for Jeremy Van Horbeke. These guys are here. They want to close out the season. Sean Simpson won the British Championship this year. Still got the Motocross of Nations to go, where arguably he's been the UK's top performing rider throughout the year. So I mean, the shoulder popped out, came back in, so it wasn't could have been a lot worse.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's going to make it. I mean, it's going to be an interesting battle to see what happens between the Frenchman and the Scot for that 5th place overall.
Absolutely. Well, let's just shift our attention down to MX2, and obviously we know we're going to get to the top end of it, but Max Anstey, a bright start in Qatar, Thailand, Brazil, but it's kind of been a poor season, hasn't it? Only sort of made better by the win in Lommel a few weeks back.
Yamaha, when it comes to the MX2 and the 250 machinery, the late arrival of that bike has been the story of the season, Paul. Max jumped on the bike that won Grand Prix in 2013 and was, straight onto form. Here he was in Lommel when these guys are still working so hard on that 2014 bike to get up to the race spec and the way that Steve Dixon wants to run the motorcycle from his team. And this was a combination of the bike. I mean, it misbehaved even that weekend, so it was a great ride by Anstey, but he's such a technical and such a good sand rider, Paul, that meeting came at the right time. It's just a real shame that we haven't seen him up front a little bit more frequently, but I think next year could be a big one for Max.
And obviously he's been overlooked for the Motocross of Nations in Latvia in 2 weeks' time. You think that's the right decision?
It's tough to say because, again, that win, like we said, came at the right time, just on the edge of selection for Team GBR. And, you have to say Kagums, if it's wet, could be a bit sandy, could be a bit loose. I mean, it's not similar to Lommel, but it's definitely not hard pack. So it's, but I think rather than questioning Max Anstey's ability, it's more a case of like the package with the Yamaha. Could it be relied upon? And there's been some evidence towards the end of the season that everything's working and it's chiming together. But then it's just one day, one race, and one event. So it's he's been overlooked on this occasion. And
obviously almost a year, or maybe more than a year, since Grand Prix wins with Ferris in Belgium, of course, with that team at Bike at Cosworth Yamaha. What about Jordi Tixier? Talk about his season now, because obviously still in contention for the MX2 World Championship. An expensive start to the championship, wasn't it? The first 4 Grand Prix without getting on the podium. You can't afford to give that much of an advantage to your teammate, can you?
Well, 23 points, Paul. I mean, if he had taken a few more positions in the early part of the season, then he would be with a much better chance of wrapping up the championship here this weekend. Jeffrey Hurling, I mean, this is the real story of the season, isn't it? MX2, these two guys, these two teammates for the last 2 years are now just going to go head to head. Tixier, we criticised him in the past. We said, he doesn't quite have the gumption or the mentality to be able to rise to the position of being a team leader. But this race, especially when he took his first Grand Prix win overall, he showed that he was ready to say to Hurlings, you're not here. I'm going to do it. I'm going to move to the front.
And he did handle the pressure well, didn't he? But obviously Jeffrey's back at the moment. We'll talk about him in a moment. But how will Jordi react to the presence of Hurlings this weekend? Final round.
I think he was downplaying it a lot last week in Brazil. I think he was a little bit relieved that Jeffrey wasn't there. But then at the same time, it also put that pressure on him to deliver. Again, he didn't go 1-1. I think it was a 5-4 or 4-5 in the 2 motos. 23 points now the difference. He needs 24 because he can't afford to tie, of course, with Jeffrey Hurlings because of the superior win rate. So there's still such an awful lot of work to do, and it really the question marks are all over Jeffrey Hurlings for me at the moment. What can he do this weekend?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Jeffrey Hurlings, a late flight here on Thursday. In fact, he arrived last night. His flight was delayed, didn't land until 11 as opposed to the 6 o'clock that he should have arrived. Hobbling around the paddock this morning, didn't go out in free practice. He's probably going to do the bare minimum, isn't he? Although I have heard this week from sources in Belgium that he was out riding, did a couple of 30-minute motos on Wednesday, the day before he ride. Hasn't lost too much of his speed, but then you talk to people today and it's, I want to do the minimum. If I can do 2 or 3 laps in time training, maybe not even ride out the time, the qualifying race, do 1 or 2 laps in the free practice tomorrow, and then just get through the race and just try and pick up those points. It's become the Jeffrey Hurling show again, hasn't it? Yeah. In terms of.
But what's the equation, Paul? I think if Jordi wins both races, then Jeffrey needs to be 7th or 8th. I mean, that's not. I mean, the guy hasn't finished lower than 2nd or 3rd all year.
Yeah, I think Jeffrey probably needs 24 points, doesn't he? Which is going to be 2 9th places. And ironically, if Jeffrey doesn't ride, that's what Jordi needs, 2 9ths if things don't go his way.
Yeah.
In the first race, Jordi can win the first race, but Jeffrey only needs to score 2 more points than him anyway from the first race. So Jeffrey wins or gets a 2nd and Jordi's 3rd. That's it, title done. But there are all kinds of different scenarios. But, for a rider that started the Grand Prix season finishing a 2nd to Dylan Ferrandis in the first race, from there on, 12 consecutive podiums in the rounds that he rode, we all expected him to walk it and wrap it up by the Czech Republic, wasn't it? But yeah. This was him in Finland. The last time we saw him out on track, the last time we saw him holding that red plate, he still has it. It's still his title to lose.
I mean, you could say on Saturday at this Grand Prix where he crashed and had to come back and fought so hard in the last couple of laps to take pole position, that was kind of a summary of the determination and the approach that Jeffrey Hurlings has to his racing. Maybe it was his unfounding in the Everts and Friends charity race where ultimately he took the injury, but I don't know, Paul. What's going on with Jeffrey Hurlings at the moment? He hasn't done any laps. Do you think this is part of a strategy just to come out and shock everyone? If he has been doing 30-minute motos this week, then maybe he's fitter than everybody expects, or maybe he's still struggling a little bit and thinks, well, I've overdone it this week.
Possibly, but
I mean, it's all conjecture, isn't it? But
it is, and it's that whole thing, isn't it, about building that presence that he has. Even if he was walking properly and went out in the free practice, just his presence in the Parc Fermé in the waiting zone. All he has to do is put in a fast lap just to sort of unsettle everybody, because that's the character that he is, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, he's always he likes to skirt controversy, doesn't he? So it's, I don't know. I think I'd like to see him riding. I think he's just keeping people guessing.
I think he will ride, and I think it's building up to be quite a climatic weekend here in Mexico, isn't it? But we've talked about the track already. If it's heavily rotivated, if we get the rain tomorrow, it's going to be muddy. That's going to throw a spanner in the works for him, because he's going to be riding with a brace on that leg to protect it. You don't want to be twisting your leg in any kind of rut. If you haven't got an injury, that's fine, but you're getting over a broken femur. All of a sudden, that's a little twist that you don't want.
Yeah, and we just see he's not letting on at all about how he feels. Does he feel he can go for a win or a top 3? If not, when's he going to click into that mode where he thinks, right, I have to focus on 9th? And that's assuming, of course, that Gautier Tixier's ahead of him. So it's a real, a part of me is quite excited that we're finishing the season in this way. It sucks for Jeffrey and also for Geordie that it's quite an intense moment, but for everybody else, it's like, watch the motos on Sunday, because it's going to be some good shouting going on in the commentary box, I think.
I think so. And well, that's all we've got time for. So Adam Wheeler on trackoffroad.com. Thanks for joining us here this weekend, our final studio show of the MXGP season. But we'll be back in 2 weeks' time for the FIM Monster Energy Motocross Nations in Latvia. But the MX2 World Championship is still on the line. Who will it be that walks away from Mexico, or flies away from Mexico back to Europe as MX2 World Champion? Will it be Gautier Tixier, or will it be Jeffrey Hurlings? Make sure you tune in tomorrow to find out. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye for now.